At 67, Madonna was rushed to the ICU, and what she said after waking up changed everything. The Queen of Pop has always been unstoppable, but in 2023, the woman who once defied every rule faced the one thing she couldn't control: her own mortality. For the first time in her life, Madonna was silent, and when she finally spoke, her words shattered the image the world had built around her. New York City, 1983. A young woman with fierce eyes and boundless ambition danced her way from crowded clubs to the global stage. Her name was Madonna, the woman who would rewrite the rules of fame, sexuality, and power in pop music. From Like a Virgin to Vogue, she wasn't just singing, she was declaring war on the limits society placed on women. Every scandal, every outfit, every reinvention made her unstoppable, a rebel wrapped in glitter and defiance. For 4 decades, she ruled the world of pop like a queen who refused to surrender her throne. She broke records, challenged religion, inspired generations, and became both loved and hated for her fearless authenticity. But time, even for a legend, is merciless. As the world changed, the same fearlessness that built her empire began to turn against her, and by 2023, that rebellion came with a price. For most of her life, Madonna had been the definition of control, of her image, her music, her body, her legacy. But in June 2023, the woman who once seemed immortal collapsed in her New York home. News broke within hours. Madonna rushed to ICU, tour postponed indefinitely. The headlines were brutal. Is this the end of the Queen of Pop? The fall of an icon? Too old to keep up? As she lay unconscious, fighting a serious bacterial infection, the same world that once worshipped her began to pick apart her face, her choices, her age. The story should have been about survival. Instead, it became about appearance. While Madonna was still in recovery, photos from her last public appearance resurfaced, the Grammys, where her swollen face sparked endless memes and cruel comments. People mocked her. What happened to her? Some called her unrecognizable. Others accused her of trying too hard to look young. She wasn't there to defend herself, but when she finally woke up, she saw the headlines waiting for her. Not words of love or concern, but ridicule. And for the first time, the most defiant woman in pop looked fragile. Those close to her said she was deeply shaken. One longtime friend revealed she felt betrayed, not by her body, but by the world she gave everything to. As weeks passed, more details emerged. Her Celebration Tour, a global event marking 40 years of her career, was put on hold. Fans feared she might never return to the stage. Even her team quietly admitted they were terrified. The woman who once danced through pain now had to learn how to simply stay alive. But Madonna's story was never about giving up. When she returned to Instagram months later, her message was short but powerful. Love from family and friends is the best medicine. I realized how lucky I am to be alive. The post went viral. Millions of fans sent support while critics still refused to let go. She looks strange. She should retire. Why can't she age gracefully? The comments flooded in. And yet, underneath the noise, something else was happening. People started to ask, why is it that when women age, they're shamed, but when men do, they're called legends? Madonna had become more than a musician again. She was once more the mirror reflecting society's double standards, the same mirror she'd held up since the 1980s. But this time, she wasn't just fighting for pop culture. She was fighting for dignity, for the right to exist as a woman who refused to fade quietly. The battle between her body and the world's expectations had begun. And for the first time, Madonna wasn't sure if the world still wanted her to win. When Madonna finally stepped back into the world, she wasn't the same woman who had fallen ill months before. Something inside her had changed, quietly, profoundly, and irreversibly. For decades, she had been fighting to stay on top, to prove she could outlast time itself. But surviving the brink of death forced her to confront a truth she had never allowed herself to face. She didn't have to fight anymore. Friends say that during her recovery, she became still, truly still, for the first time in her life. No flashing cameras, no tour rehearsals, no spotlight. Just silence and her own thoughts. One close source revealed, she kept saying, I've spent my whole life chasing the next moment. Maybe it's time I learned to live in this one. That near-death moment stripped her of the armor she had worn for 40 years. Beneath the fame, the scandal, and the perfection, there was simply a woman, a mother, an artist, and a survivor. And in that silence, she began to forgive herself for aging, for changing, for being human. When she returned to social media, fans noticed something new. Gone was the polished, edited perfection. In its place were unfiltered photos, words of gratitude, reflections on fragility and strength. She wrote, "When you almost lose everything, you realize what truly matters, the people who stay, the love that heals, and the courage to begin again." It wasn't a comeback announcement. It was a confession. For someone who built her empire on the idea of control, this vulnerability was her most radical act yet. Because Madonna had finally realized the truth. Real power doesn't come from refusing to age, but from refusing to apologize for living. Her near-death experience had become a rebirth, a chance to redefine what it means to be a woman in a world obsessed with youth. And as she prepared to relaunch her postponed celebration tour, she did it not as the flawless icon people expected, but as the imperfect human she had finally accepted herself to be. "I'm not done," she told her fans. "I'm just beginning again, differently." For millions who had watched her rise, fall, and rise again, this wasn't just Madonna's revelation. It was a reminder that even legends bleed, break, and still find the courage to shine. When Madonna reappeared in public months after her hospitalization, the cameras flashed just as they always had. But this time, the energy was different. It wasn't the shock of scandal or the thrill of controversy. It was awe. The woman who had been written off as finished walked back into the spotlight, radiant in defiance. The media didn't know what to do with her. Some called her inspirational, others accused her of seeking sympathy. But as her celebration tour finally began, the reviews told a different story, one of survival and evolution. "Madonna doesn't just perform," wrote Rolling Stone, "she resurrects." On stage, she spoke about her brush with death, calling it a wake-up call. Her voice cracked slightly as she told the audience, "I forgot how fragile life is, and how much I love being here, with you." It wasn't just another speech, it was a reckoning. For decades, Madonna had been accused of arrogance. Now she was vulnerable, and people listened. Social media exploded with reactions. Fans who had once criticized her appearance began posting old clips of her early days, writing messages like, "She gave us everything. The least we can do is respect her journey." Others admitted they had judged her too harshly. "We mocked her for aging," one tweet read, "but she never stopped creating. Maybe we're the ones who need to change." Of course, not everyone was kind. Some voices still sneered, calling her desperate, vain, out of touch. But that's the irony. Madonna's entire legacy was built on provoking reaction. She was once burned at the stake for dancing in lingerie and kissing a black Jesus on MTV. Now she was being crucified for refusing to disappear. Celebrities began speaking out in her defense. Cher tweeted, "They'll never understand what it takes to stay this fearless." Even younger stars, like Lady Gaga and Miley Cyrus, publicly praised her strength. Gaga called her the blueprint of survival. And slowly the conversation shifted. Journalists began to write think pieces about ageism and double standards in entertainment, how male rock stars are praised for performing at 70, while women are shamed for showing wrinkles. Madonna had become a symbol again, but this time not of rebellion, of endurance. Despite criticism, she didn't respond with anger. Instead, she chose gratitude. In one of her last interviews of the year, she said calmly, "If I can make one woman feel less afraid of aging, then I've done something right." It wasn't a comeback line, it was closure. The world had finally started to see her not as a pop provocateur, but as a survivor. A woman who refused to apologize for being alive, for being visible, for being herself. After everything, the fame, the criticism, the near-death silence, Madonna still stands. She no longer dances to prove she's young or sings to prove she's strong. She performs now because she's alive, because survival, in her world, has become the ultimate rebellion. For 40 years, she fought to control the narrative. But in the end, the most powerful thing she ever did was let go. And maybe that's the truth behind every legend. At some point, you stop fighting time and start embracing the story it leaves on your face. So now, as the lights fade and the world watches her one more time, a question remains. Has Madonna finally found peace with herself? Or is she still dancing against the world's expectations? What do you think? Tell us your thoughts below. Tell us,